Hey, boo, hey! Hey, boo! Happy Masculine Mondays! Tell me what you need, I go deep, deep. When I fall in love, I go deep, deep. You can copy that like it's easy. You look like you need. Hey, y'all! I'm so happy to be. I go eat it up, I know vegan. I make that thing go wild. I go make that thing run water. I go make you sing. Hey, y'all! Okay. Happy Masculine Mondays! I am so happy to be here. Y'all are getting the QueenTV After Dark version. But hey, you guys. Hey, my divine masculines, my sexy divine masculines. I hope you guys are doing well today. Today we are embracing a very difficult topic. Like, when God gave me this topic, I was like, what? Like I started breathing heavy, y'all. I got triggered. Like, soon as he gave me the topic, I was triggered, okay? So, I know this is not an easy topic for us to embark upon, but it's a much needed topic. It was stemmed out of my need to kind of understand why it is that I see such high levels of disrespect towards African American women, as well with me understanding that the way that people relate to African American women has a lot to do with, well, the way that black men relate to African American women has a lot to do with how it is that they were raised, right? And it also has a lot to do with their relationships and the things that they have gone through with women, right? And a lot of times what we do is we will mirror whatever relationships we had in our childhood. We will also mirror those as adults. So just like women get into relationships with men that remind them of their fathers, men also get in relationships with women that remind them of their mothers, okay? So today we're talking about the mommy wound and how that affects our relationships, our romantic relationships, how it is that we relate to women, and like all that cool stuff, right? Now, this is a healing channel, right? This is a healing channel. So, and healing is not always easy because, let me put this air on. Healing is not always easy because we have to, in order to heal, it requires us to look at things that may be difficult. It requires us to look at things that may cause us to go through a grieving process, right? And that grieving process is when we actually have to take the time to really get real with ourselves about the things that we did not receive as a child. And that is not always easy to look at, right? And also, too, we're talking about moms. And no one wants to villainize their mother unless, of course, they were raised by somebody that was extremely abusive. And then in that case, you may already have negative feelings about your mother. But if you have very loving feelings about your mother, you may not realize that there were things that were missing in your childhood. Or maybe you do realize that there were things that were missing in your childhood. And it hasn't affected your love for your mother, which is fine, which is great, right? Give me 1 second. That's good, right? Because then you're not dealing with, one of the things you're not dealing with is like bitterness and anger, right? So there are certain underlying things that are a result of our childhood relationships with our mothers, right? Now, there are 2 ways that a mommy wound can be formed. Either number 1, well, there's multiple ways that a mommy wound can be formed, but we're going to talk about, I'm going to just discuss two major ones, right? So we're going to go from one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum, okay? So you either had a mother who may have depended on you more than she should have with you being a child, right? You may have had a mother who found her identity in you as the child versus having her own sense of identity prior to having you, right? Now you may say, well, that's not bad. You know what I mean? Like, I was her pride and joy. And if you were, that's good, right? But if if your mom is looking to you for that sense of identity, it robs you of the ability to construct your own solid sense of identity, which affects our self-esteem, right? That affects how it is that we view ourselves, right? Also, the way that your mother viewed herself will also imprint on you as well. So if she was always stressed, had certain things going on that she was trying to work through, that will have had an effect on you as a child, right? So like I said, we're not villainizing moms today. We're not villainizing moms, but we're being very honest about what our childhood relationship looked like with our mothers, because that in turn affects our adult relationships, namely your romantic relationships, right? It affects how it is that you relate to the other women in your life as you become an adult, right? So if you have mommy wounds, that will play out in your relationships in a toxic or negative way, right? So we talked about one way that it could play out. If mom depended on you, you were her confidant, you were kind of like her therapist. She found her sense of identity within you. That is one way. Another way, on the opposite end of the spectrum, is if mom was not always there emotionally or physically. So maybe mom worked a lot, or maybe mom had a drug problem, so you had to stay with family, or you were with the babysitter a lot. Or maybe mom was always there, but she was not emotionally available, right? She was not emotionally available for your needs for whatever reason. We're not villainizing moms, right? Because as a single mother, I know that I didn't do everything perfectly, right? Because as a single mom, you are raising your children, but then at the same time, you're also dealing with all of your stuff, right? And I remember when my children were young, like, I was dealing at times, I was dealing with a lot of really heavy shit, right? So we feel that level of neglect, or that level of that lack of emotional support when we are being raised, that will give us a sense of not being able to trust, right? So then we grow up and we get into relationships, and we're not able to trust that the relationship is going to be loving, is going to be nurturing, that our partner is going to be there for us, that our partner is going to be able to support us. Because if we did not receive that in childhood, those are the things that we grow up and expect. Because between the ages of 0 and 5 years old, we basically gain our view of the world through our childhood or through our experiences. Because between the ages of 0 and 5 years old, as I've mentioned in my inner child video, we don't have a filter. We don't have a way of being able to say, okay, this is toxic, so, I'm not going to take this in. We're actually taking everything in as a child, all situations, and that has an effect on us energetically, because those situations do not leave our body per se. So they're still trapped all up within our energy field, right? So doing chakra work, right? And one day we'll talk about chakras and things like that. Your chakras are your inner energy signatures, 7 energy signatures that are located within your body, right? And we can have negative energy, toxic energy trapped within our energy centers. We can have fragmented energy if we dealt with any type of abuse as a child. Abuse is the number one way to basically fragment your energy. And what that looks like is it makes it hard for you to be comfortable within your own skin, right? Also, too, if we were raised in a lot of toxicity and chaos and things of that nature, toxicity and chaos, unfortunately, becomes a part of our norm. So then when we experience something that is not chaotic, that is not toxic, it feels foreign to us. So we tend to gravitate to things that are chaotic and toxic because they feel familiar. Okay, so that's just like some understanding of why it is that toxic at times feels so good, why it is that chaos at times can feel so good or just natural. It's because that's what we're used to, because that's what we were raised in. But as we get older and we start to heal and we start to do our inner work, we start to realize the difference between what things are healthy and what things are not healthy. And in order for us to gravitate towards relationships that are healthy, behaviors that are healthy, choices that are healthy, we have to first recognize the toxicity in order to be able to kind of like reverse those things, in order to kind of like be able to do things differently. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to understand like what was the wrong way in order for us to be able to change and do things the right way, right? So I'm talking about the mommy wound today because I personally, as an African American female, I personally, in my opinion, I do not feel like there is enough respect given to the black woman. And I also feel like black women are not protected as they should be, right? And even statistically, there's more violence, there's more domestic violence, there's more violent crimes committed on African American women. And I be talking to God, y'all. So I was just like, yo, like, I don't really understand, like, where the level of disrespect comes in, why it's so easy for men to disrespect women. But being someone that has a mental health background, I immediately know that the answer has a lot to do with their upbringing, right? So then I'm like, well, everybody that disrespects women doesn't necessarily hate their mother or have an issue with their mother, right? So we have to realize that these things are on a subconscious level, right? So mommy wounds play out in our lives in that there's a sense of confusion, right? Because as a child, you don't necessarily understand why it is that you were not receiving the things that you should have received. But as a child, you don't know how to articulate that, right? It plays out in our self-esteem because, like I said, you may have had a mother who was good at building you up, things of that nature, but if she in turn tore herself down, or if she in turn tore your father down and you were able to hear it, that is actually what's crazy, is that is actually the dialogue that we adapt, right? And that is the self-talk that we continue to play over and over and over in our mind, like a broken record, right? And it's unhealthy. So our self-esteem is jeopardized, right? If there's emotional neglect of any sort, if you didn't feel comfortable with being able to express your feelings, if you did not feel like your feelings mattered, if you didn't feel as if your choices mattered, if you did not feel seen or heard, that affects how it is that we go into our personal relationships, right? We don't trust that our relationships are going to give us what it is that we need. That in turn looks like a fear of dun, 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 a fear of commitment, right? If our self-esteem has been affected in some way due to our childhood, that will affect how it is that we see ourselves. So at times, men will, to overcompensate for the lack of self-esteem, and I say this with the most compassion, the greatest level of compassion ever. Okay, so I'm not villainizing moms. I'm not villainizing black men, right? We're just getting to the root of, why it is that we do the things that we do, right? And if we don't get to the root of why it is that we do what we do, then we can't heal, and in turn, we cannot change our behavior, or we don't even realize or recognize that our behaviors are dysfunctional or toxic, okay? So, I'm saying all this information with the greatest amount of love and care for my men and anyone that is listening to this video, because like I said, I'm here to be a help. We healing over here. We healing over here. We healing over here. We're not pointing fingers. We're not being judgmental. This is a judgment-free zone. We're not villainizing. We're not villainizing anybody, right? So, as divine masculines, that is my primary target group, right? And reason being is I want to talk to, teach, inspire, encourage men that are actually looking to make changes. I was telling a friend of mine, we were having a conversation, and I'm like, some people know that they are here to be different and do something different, right? And then there are other people that, they just really don't. Well, let me back up. Some of us know that we are here to be something different and do something different, but we just may not know exactly how to do it or how to go about it, right? And then there are other people who lack the capacity or the concern with being and doing something different, because basically, like, their purpose on this planet is different from, say, someone who is a divine masculine, or say someone who is chosen. Whether you choose to use that verbiage or not, whether you choose to use the verbiage of divine masculine or not, if you know that you have something special on your life, if you know that you are supposed to do something, if you have a relationship with God or a higher power, and you know that you are here to do something different, to make a difference, and to have a purpose, right? In my opinion, you fall into the category of being a divine masculine, because you are looking to heal. You are looking to change certain family patterns that have occurred. You're looking to be a good dad. You're looking to be a leader. You're looking to be someone that can be upheld within the community, someone that can be a mentor, someone that, people can look up to. You're looking to be a good role model. I might have said that already. But you're also looking to be a good man in your relationships, right? But if we don't realize that there's certain things within us that we need to work on in order to be the best man that we could possibly be, then we're kind of at a loss for how to make the changes that we need to make, or we're kind of at a loss for how it is that I change the way that I see things, the way that I view things, or just the way that I go about my everyday life, right? How do I change how it is that I handle my relationships when I've always been like this? Like, I've been like this for as long as I can remember, right? And to that I say, we have to get down to the root. We have to get down to the core reason why it is that we, make the choices that we make, etc., etc. So we're going to talk a little bit about fear of commitment, how that plays out, why that plays out. And that is tied a lot of times to, like I said, insecure attachments in your childhood will make you fear commitment. Not having the emotional support that you needed will make you fear commitment. Because a lot of those things are rooted and grounded in not feeling safe. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, like, when it goes through the wash and all the fluffy, and we clear away all the fluffy terms. Basically, when we were being raised, we didn't feel safe either in our physical environment, and our emotional environment, and safe with being able to, express our emotions and they be honored. Or, it could be both. Physically, you may have been physically in a lot of danger depending on what was going on in your childhood. Or you may have felt safe in your surroundings, but you were not safe to be able to express yourself, express your feelings, and they be honored. And then, especially for men, we're raised in a society where, it's taboo for men to be vulnerable. It's taboo for men to be tapped into their emotions, etc., etc. And that ends up turning into toxic masculinity, right? Because with that lack of self-esteem, with that lack of control in your childhood, say you were raised in a household where dad was there, but dad was abusive, right? Like, imagine having to see another man be abusive or mistreat your mother, and you're a little person, and there's really nothing that you could do about it. Like, you have these big, strong emotions and feelings about what it is that's going on, but I don't have the ability to change those things. It can make you feel very out of control. So, how it plays out in your relationships is you have a need to be in control. So you may get in relationships and you may be very controlling. You may get in relationships and you may ghost people. You may get in relationships and you break up with them before they're able to break up with you, right? And that is that need for control, right? That also is a rejection wound, because if we felt rejected in our childhood or just not embraced in the way that we should have been, we're always going to fear rejection. So if we fear rejection, I'm not going to put myself in a position that I'm going to get rejected. So I'm going to leave you before you leave me, right? Or I'm going to be jealous and over controlling, because really at the root of that is my fear of rejection, right? And I've, in my experience, the men that I have dealt with, I noticed that they dealt with a lot of women. Now, I'm very emotionally available, right? I'm very, I'm very like touchy feely, vulnerable, all of those things, right? So if you were raised by someone who wasn't necessarily emotionally available, vulnerable, in touch with her feelings, things of that nature, a female like me could be triggering, right? But a female that isn't truly available, you may gravitate towards that because that's what you're used to. You're used to certain levels of emotional unavailability, right? So that looks like, the guys that deal with me personally, I realized that a lot of the guys in my past dealt with women that were not available, right? So that looks like being the player type, or the type, that looks like Mr. Still Your Girl. You know what I'm saying? That's how I'm going to say it. That looks like Mr. Still Your Girl, right? So with that, you get involved with women that are not completely emotionally available. And what you may not realize is that you are mirroring the relationship that you had with your mother, because she may not have been emotionally available for whatever reason, right? She did the best that she could, right? Unless she was blatantly, just, yeah, we want to package it real pretty today. Like, I ain't gonna get too deep in my therapist bag on y'all. We gonna package it real pretty today, and we're gonna say mom did the best that she could with the resources and the tools that she had, right? Because obviously, if she was lacking something, it was because it was something that she didn't receive, right? So we have compassion for mom, but at the same time, we want to be honest, and we want to look at the things within our childhood that we did not have, and how that has affected us into our adulthood and the choices that we've made in our adulthood. So if we have a fear of commitment, if we have low self-esteem, but we may not realize it, it may be something very, very deep, so it's kind of subconscious. There can be a need for power, a need to be in control, a very grandiose personality, or a very grandiose way of viewing ourselves to overcompensate for what it is that we really feel, right? Because like said, that mommy wound, it causes confusion. It causes you to be confused about like what your purpose is in life, right? If dad was villainized to you as a little person, that disrupts your sense of self, because as a man, regardless of whether dad was there or not, you still find your sense of self in that man that is your father. So if dad was bad, as a child, what we may not realize is that as a child, we're like, okay, well, if dad is bad, then I must be bad. And we actually internalize those things without ever realizing it. But it comes out in our behavior, right? So basically, how to kind of get to the root of whether or not we have a mommy wound or not is to really just be honest about your childhood, what that looked like, what things you may not have received in your childhood that you may have needed, whether you realized it or not consciously. Realize that, I didn't have this, and this. But if certain things play out in your life, such as like a sense of underlying subconscious sense of confusion, a confusion around your purpose and exactly what it is that you are here to do, a subconscious feeling of low self-esteem, what else insecurities, an inability to be vulnerable and open with your feelings. Those are all things that were a result of your childhood, right? So I'm gonna end there. We could get deeper, but I'm gonna end there. So this video, we are identifying whether or not we have a mommy wound, right? And what that may look like in our relationships or in our life. Oh, and don't let me forget, a lack of boundaries. The inability to put in place healthy boundaries is another result of a mommy wound, right? An over attachment to your mother, and needing her approval and things of that nature. That's a mommy wound. Because if a mom was very codependent on you, that can create that sense of obligation that plays out into our adulthood, okay? If mom was emotionally unavailable, that plays out in our adulthood with us getting into relationships with women that are either emotionally unavailable, or getting into relationships where we bail out of the relationship early. We have a fear of commitment. We have a fear of rejection, right? So yeah, so that's a lot, right? That's a lot. So I gave you guys a lot to think about, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more in the future. Please do feel free if you have any questions, anything that you want me to expound on a little bit more, leave a comment, and we can get into it. We can have more of a dialogue. Coming in the future, we will be talking about healing the mommy wound, how it is that we go about healing the mommy wound. And I will say one of those things is, well, we already talked about two of them in this video, and that's just recognizing it, forgiving yourself, forgiving your mom, but, you know, just being honest about the things that you did not have that you should have had. You can write a letter to your mother, not actually to be delivered, but just to be able to get everything out and be able to get those feelings out. And believe it or not, that is a huge, those two things are very, very huge in starting to be able to heal from those mommy wounds, kind of understanding what happened, what was lacking, and then you kind of know where it is that you need to start with, you know, the healing process, right? Do I need to heal my self-esteem, my sense of self? Because I would even dare to say that when we take on the Mr. Still Your Girl persona, that is, you know, getting into relationships that don't necessarily serve your highest good. So at the end of the day, it speaks to the fact that I feel unworthy. I feel as if I don't deserve to have all my needs met in my relationships, right? So because I have an underlying feeling that I'm not worthy of having all of my needs met, you know, I will find myself in relationships where I'm not going to get all of my needs met, right? Or we can find ourselves in relationships with women that are very codependent, right? Because it gives us that sense of power. And that makes us feel as if we have a healthy self-esteem. But in reality, you know what I mean? It doesn't mean that we have a healthy, you know, level of self-esteem, because we seek our importance or we seek our value in someone else, or we seek our value in what it is that we can do for others. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, y'all, that's all I got for y'all. I know this video is a lot more serious and calm. I'm in my hood therapist bag, so this video is a little bit more on the serious note, but it's a very, very important video, I believe, because I do want to see our men start to heal some of the things that are going on, even though it's, you know what I mean, it's taboo to be vulnerable, it's taboo to go to therapy and all of that kind of stuff. But in a day and age where we're all into, you know, this whole positivity movement, there's, to be honest, like, there's no way to be completely positive if we haven't healed the things within us that cause us to be toxic. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, so I'm gonna leave it there. If y'all have any questions, please feel free, drop a comment, share it with your friends, share this video with your friends, like the video so that it can get out to more people who may need it. What else? Like I said, drop a comment. I will respond. Let me know if you have any questions. Share it with your friends. Oh, subscribe to my channel if you have not, so that you know every time I upload a video.